1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM. HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Welcome to the Our Legacy Matters show, where we'll discuss how to secure, maintain, and transfer wealth to future generations. I am your host, Attorney Sherry Fleming. Now let's tune in. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. I am Sherry Fleming, your host, and this is the Our Legacy Matters show. While I am an attorney licensed here in the great state of Maryland, please remember that I am not your attorney. So anything that you hear that piques your interest on this show, I encourage you to seek professional help in the areas of tax, law, and any place else where you may need assistance. And so today I am going to begin with a question that was emailed in. And that question is how to build wealth as a young single professional, as well as how to protect and secure your legacy as a young professional. Wanting to know what stage, assets, career progression, was it good to begin to consider estate planning? So thank you. Thank you for the question that was sent in. And I'm going to tell you, my opinion is probably different from others. So I do encourage you to again, go seek professional help for your individual situation. But my opinion is that estate planning should begin at 18. When you have assets and you are into adulthood, anything could happen. And so you want to begin to lay the foundation, begin to build the bricks of estate planning at a very young age. And so some people may say, well, it's one train of thought is that young people don't have any assets. Young people don't have anything. And that's not true. Most 18-year-olds have a bank account. Most 18-year-olds have some kind of income, digital currency, use of all of these mobile apps, Apple Cash, Cash App, all of these things. 18-year-olds are transacting. They're spending money like everyone else. And so part of estate planning is not just about the money and the assets, but it's also about medical needs and autonomy, or when autonomy is lost. And so when you're 18, you could be in college, you could have a vocation, starting a career, you could be at home. Either way, you are an adult in this country at 18 years old, and you are able to make decisions for yourself, and your parents are limited in control because you are an adult. And so since that transition happens at 18, it becomes very important that 18-year-olds or parents of those in that transition age group from 18 to 21 begin to take steps and advise their children on how to set a solid foundation. And so one concern that I do have for the younger group is making sure that powers of attorney, during the first episode, I mentioned a durable power of attorney and what it does. And essentially with a durable power of attorney, you're able to give authorization and access to an agent to make decisions for you in the event of incapacity. An advanced medical directive does the same thing. You're able to identify an agent as well as give some instructions as to the medical treatment you would want in the event of incapacitation. And so it becomes very important at 18 that you have those documents in place. More than a will, more than anything else, you do want to plan for disability, because the reality is anything could happen. Any type of surgery could be necessary. And I want to give my example, actually, when I was in college. I actually went to college at 17. I was still a minor. but away at college nonetheless. And I think right after my 18th birthday, it was the spring semester, I had gotten really, really sick. I think I got the flu or something along those lines. And I went to Lincoln University in Southern Chester County, Pennsylvania. There's nothing there but Jennersville Hospital. And I was so sick. other people had cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone at this particular time. I had calling cards. Some of my friends had cell phones, and I got really sick. My mom knew that I wasn't feeling well and that I probably needed to go to the hospital. And so I had a friend, some friends from college take me to the hospital because they were upperclassmen and had vehicles. And so they took me to the hospital and they stayed there with me. And I thank goodness for the community that we had in college, because it was only through them that my mother was really able to know the little bit that was going on with me, because I was over 18 years old. I was in a hospital out of state. There was no way for the hospital to confirm or deny that my mother was who she said she was. There was no way for me to really confirm or deny, because I was that sick. The only people that were there were the people who took me to the hospital, who the nursing staff allowed to see me. And through them, I was able to communicate with my parent. And so that is not an abnormal occurrence. And in that event, having some of these documents, particularly an advanced medical directive, especially if my illness was more severe than what it was, I did stay in the hospital a considerable amount of time, but it was not overnight. And so I was able to go back to my dorm room and go back to the nurse on campus. But in that situation, my mother really did not have any ability to access information, my medical information, due to one, distance, as well as the fact that I was an adult and there was no right and entitlement for her to receive information. And so for younger people who are single, not even single or not, it doesn't really matter, who are in their profession, it becomes very important that you at least have an advanced medical directive in place to be in the event of illness. The same is true if you're incapacitated and someone needs to access your financial information. Someone needs to access your Cash App. Someone needs to get into your Android or your iPhone. You have to have legal documents in place for people to be able to access that information. And my thought about younger people, once being young and actually having teenagers now, is that we were, or they could be so consumed with wanting privacy and so just enamored by the autonomy that having a phone that no one else can access gives them, that no one thinks about the consequences if and when there is a temporary disability. And so that is something that I just want all people to keep in mind, particularly if you're a parent of a young adult. If you are listening to this and you're a young adult, think about that. Think about having those documents. And so let's say that you're the colleges and you're into your career, whatever your career may be, a professional career, vocation, whatever that may be. And now you're in a place where you are building your wealth. What should you have in place? So when you're in this phase, you can be working to obtain income, or you could be waiting to receive an inheritance. That's where your funds are coming from. They're coming from someone else as inheritance. They could be coming from a family member as a gift. They could be coming from yourself through your income, through your work, the work of your hands. And so you're building wealth at this stage. What should you be doing? Well, you should already have a power of attorney and advanced medical directive, because you need those at 18, in my opinion. At the phase where you're building wealth, you need to consider, is there anyone else who is relying upon the wealth that you're building? And if there is no one else, your parents are independent, and in this age, quite frankly, there probably shouldn't be. In this phase, you may not have children. Again, the question is for a single person. So there is really no, you don't need to account for the loss in income. Whereas if you are a parent or a caregiver of an older adult and you are young and working, you need to account for the loss of your income that will be experienced by those individuals that for whom you provide care. So if you're single, you don't really need to account for much. I think that is a deceptive thought process, because here is one thing that I do want to mention. When you are thinking about wealth preservation, asset protection, or really wealth replacement is what we call it, insurance is a great tool to tap into. And because younger people aren't considering their mortality, because younger people may not have children or adults to care for financially, the thought never crosses their minds to say, well, if I'm not here, what happens with these individuals for whom I provide care? And the trick in this is that because you never think about it, you never think about the wealth replacement mechanism of insurance, which can do a number of things, but again, replace the wealth that would be missing if you are disabled or you're no longer to contribute because of death. And insurance is the cheapest when you are younger, because hopefully your health is good. You are seen to, have have life ahead of you. And so it doesn't cost that much to insure. Again, what are you insuring against? So because of this, younger people often do not think, let me get an insurance policy while my premiums are going to be low. And it is one thing that I want younger people to consider. So when you're considering building your wealth, as you build, make sure that you are tapping into a wealth replacement mechanism such as insurance. I'm not going to go into term versus permanent and universal and all of those. I am not an insurance agent. Maybe I'll have an insurance professional on here to provide greater detail. But the long and the short of it is, when you're young, you may not have the wealth to replace, but you want to tap into insurance as a good wealth replacement vehicle, a protection vehicle, because it is the cheapest, the least expensive while you're young. It gets more expensive the older you get, because the older you get, the more likely you are to develop a disability, the more likely you are to expire by way of behavior, health, all things that are taken into account with insurance. So I would say if you're in your career phase, one of the things that you should look at, depending on what you have, is insurance. The other major thing you should look into, and I probably should have mentioned this first because it is actually more important, in my opinion, is retirement. A lot of young people, when building wealth and thinking about transferring generational wealth, we do not consider not working one day. We all don't want to work, but we never actually make a plan to ensure that we are able to have adequate income still flowing in at a time when we are no longer working. So young professionals, you should be retirement planning more than insurance. I may have mentioned it first, but more than insurance, you should begin retirement planning. And the one thing that I'll mention now, I was going to mention later, but the one piece of advice that I would give every young professional, single or not, is to make sure that you have a host of advisors, a host of people who have been where you want to go, who are where you want to be. So people who have already been where you want to go and people who are where you desire to be. Two groups of advisors, those who did it and those who are doing it. Okay, you want to have advisors in all areas of life. You want to have advisors for personal matters, your professional career, financial advisors, spiritual advisors, mental health counselors. I consider them to be advisors as well. Have an advisor in every area of your life who, again, have been where you want to eventually be and who are where you want to be. And the reason why is that they can make your transition into adulthood and into building your wealth a lot easier. So in the way of retirement, my husband particularly got this advice because I was still in school when he started his career. And I got married at 2, just in case anyone's asking. I got married like straight out of the womb. So I've been married forever. So I don't really know what it means to be a single adult. But my husband received the advice when he started his career, making a decent salary for a single person. The first piece of advice, max out your 401k. Whatever your retirement plan is, 401k, 403b, max out your contribution. It's money that's put away tax-free for you as a future retiree to be able to tap into later. The thing about retirement and the thing about investment that unfortunately, you may not learn it until it's too late, is that the sooner you start, the better. It doesn't matter if you're starting with $25 or if you're starting with thousands of dollars. The sooner you start saving, the better. The sooner you start investing in your retirement, the better. And the reason why is this concept called compound interest. You are able to earn money on the money that you set aside over time. That is how wealth is built. Wealth is not a quick thing. It is a thing that is built over the course of time. And when you are younger, you have the benefit of time. So the first piece of advice that he was given was to max out his 401k. When I started working, I took that same piece of advice. The difference is I didn't really make that much. So it was very difficult for me to max out my 401k. So I didn't, but I did put funds away in my retirement plan with a gradual increase, so I would not even see it. It would come directly out of my paycheck, would never come to me directly. It was put away into my retirement. And so he had the ability to max out his 401k starting at a young age. I started retirement planning at a young age. I can say that we aren't where we want to be because we have 3 kids, but it is something over time, having access to retirement savings and just seeing those that asset grow over time lets me know that we are on the right track. The next thing that you could do in this phase, and the 2 other next things are optional. In the wealth building stage, the ways in which you build wealth is purchase a home. You could purchase a home. There's a lot of pros and cons to doing so. I do know statistics show that younger people are not purchasing homes. Younger people are renting. They don't see the value in purchasing a home. I can assure you that even if you don't purchase a residence, there is value in having real estate. Real property, raw land with improvements, which could be a commercial building or a residence. And so do your research, do your homework. Real estate helps you build a wealth portfolio. And so purchasing a home, particularly if you're clear on the area you want to remain in and reside in, do your homework. But that is another way to build wealth. And the other way that I want to mention is starting a business, particularly if you have a good or service that you are introducing into the market and you're able to monetize. If you're not able to monetize it and it's not a business, it's a hobby, then let it be a hobby. But know the difference between the two. Know the difference between having a business that you can monetize and receive income from versus having a hobby, a thing that you like to do. Okay. And so again, in this wealth building phase for a young professional, you are either working to receive an income, you are preparing for inheritance, or you are inheriting some assets. And in doing so, to build wealth, you have retirement planning, you have insurance planning that could be done. And those are good estate planning tools or things that can be used for your estate planning, because those two tools allow you to transfer those assets to a beneficiary at death. And so you can name in your insurance contract a beneficiary. You can name in your retirement plan a beneficiary. And having beneficiary designations is a part of estate planning. Those assets pass by operation of contract. There are contractual agreements that you have with the financial institution that's providing the insurance or the financial, the retirement plan, and you are telling them what you want to happen with that asset in the event of your death. And so that's why getting those two things younger, starting at a younger age, allows you to see the increase in your personal wealth over the course of time as you age to the point where you're no longer a young professional, but you may be starting a family or not, because it's your choice to do so, or you may be caring for older adults such as your parents or your aunts or not. Either way, you want to make sure you invest in those things. And so when you get to a point as a professional, when you are beginning to accrue assets that are not, do not transfer by operation of contract, do not pass because you're able to name a beneficiary, you want to make sure that you have a will. Notice in all of this, I have not said any particular ages. I am giving you life events and life circumstances. A lot of these things happen for me, again, at a younger age, because I was married in law school. I was married at 23. I had my first child at 24. I look back, I was an infant at this particular time. But the stage in life where I was, it required me to think about, well, what would happen for my children and for my child if something happened to me or my spouse. At that age, I also, not only caring for children, had to consider, well, what would happen with my parents should something happen to me? I am of the sandwich generation where I've had to care for both children and parents who were sick, ill, with a disability, aging. A lot of us are in this space. A lot of us are in this space now in our 40s, but I was in this space a lot earlier. And so for me, I would be doing everyone a disservice if I gave a particular age, but I would say, look at the circumstances of life. Who do you have to care for, if anyone? And who cares for you, if anyone? Look at those things and say, how do I move forward? If something is to happen to me, should I become disabled? Should I pass away? What is the plan that I would like to have in place? What would I like to see happen? And so we talked about a power of attorney. We talked about retirement and insurance designations and plans for building wealth. But protecting and transferring wealth could be done by a trust. We've mentioned the types in earlier shows. It also should be done or could be done by a will. And so once you recognize that there are assets that you have to look at how will you transfer them. And so I'll use the next show to really go into the purpose of a will, a last will and testament, the components of a will. But the one thing that I do want to make sure that you think about is, what do you have? Okay. And who do you have? And again, going back to all of my younger professionals, single or not, who is advising you? Who are you receiving instruction from? Is it TikTok? Is it Google? Is it a person who has been where you want to be and maybe in their later stages in life and could give you information? Is it a person who is where you want to be and is able to give you information about some things that they did correctly or some things that they may change? And again, advisors in 5 particular areas. Personal. Who's advising you in your personal life? Who's giving you career advice for your professional life? Who is your financial advisor? All young professionals need to get a financial advisor, certified financial planner, certified financial specialist. Go to accrediting organizations to verify whether or not this person actually knows what he or she is doing. There is some statistics out there about high net worth individuals of color. So these are individuals with a net worth of $1 million or more. Actually, I think it might be $800,000 or more. And the study basically shows that for individuals of color, it doesn't matter how much our wealth is, we typically lack professional advisors. So if you are a young person who is looking to build and secure wealth, my number one piece of advice to you is to get an advisor who can tell you what it is that you don't know and highlight these spaces in life where you may need to bring in other professionals for wealth building as well as estate planning. And so that is my tip for today for the young single professional. Get an advisor to give you the advice that you don't know. And if you're saying to yourself, I don't have children, I don't have parents I want to care for, I'll leave this plug for you to think about a charitable organization that you would like to support. Think about your sorority, your fraternity, your college. Think about your house of worship. Think about the place down the street that may serve food to the needy. There are many ways in which you can leave a legacy that does not always involve you having children. And so think about that, and we'll discuss charitable planning as well as last will and testaments at a later time. Thank you for joining me, and please feel free to submit your questions to sherryfleming.com/Our Legacy Matters. Thanks for listening to the Our Legacy Matters show. Connect with me, Attorney Sherry Fleming, at I Am Sherry Fleming on all social media platforms or at sherryfleming.com/Our Legacy Matters, or you can call us at 410-316-6800. Make sure you tune in next week for another discussion because our legacy matters.
Talking the day, soul at night on the new 1010 WOLB.